Ervin, I'm so glad that you're
I'm
here.
so happy to be here.
You're probably one of the most like fascinating people, and not because of it's just like your life. It's just so fun to watch on social media, and you've done so many wonderful, cool things to get you to where you are today. And now you have so many businesses that you're running, and you're really inspiring. And so,
Thank you.
from afar, I've just been like such a super fan. And so I'm so excited that you're here today, and that I now live in Nashville. And
I know. Now we can actually be best friends.
I know I'm so
Not
excited.
just digitally, but in real
Yes,
life.
yes,
I know, because we have a lot in common.
yes. That
Really.
literally, we have a lot in common.
Oh, look. We're already on the same wavelength. So,
So I'm so excited to talk about. We were briefly talking right before about how I kind of had like this big show that kind of like made everything go like skyrocket. But we've done a lot of similar things in the past, and you've like really built this amazing community. But I think it all starts from some of the things that we did in our past. You're from Kentucky. When did you come here?
So I went to college in Tennessee, like an hour and a half from here. But I was coming back and forth to Nashville like weekly for voice lessons from the time I was 10. So Nashville was always in my life. But moved here after college in 2009, I think.
Okay.
So I've been here a long time.
Yeah. So wait, Kentucky is above Tennessee?
Yes, it is. I have to do it too, Hannah. It's okay.
How long's that drive?
It's like 2 hours and 15 minutes. So every Wednesday, my grandparents would pick me up from like our little school, and they would bring me here, and I would do a 1 hour voice lesson. We would go to eat at like Ruth Chris or Amerigo's, which was so fancy. And then we go back to Kentucky, and it was so special because I'm the oldest of 23 first cousins that like all lived on this farm together, and my grandparents were in the middle.
Like
and
a compound.
It was like a compound. But I got to get off the compound like once a week for voice lessons, and it was a really special time. It was a time that I fell in love with Nashville. And it's funny, all these years later that this is
Did you know you were going to be here?
I was always drawn to Nashville because it's like a southern big city.
Yes. That's why I'm glad to be here.
Yeah. And once you live in this, when you're from the South, I mean, I love the North and the South, but there's something about Southerners that I feel like are always drawn to those Southern cities. And then when you get like kind of big time in the South, like you did, it's like, we'll just move to a big city.
Yeah.
But a Southern city. It just feels like home.
I love it. I love it. I mean, for me, I always was like, I want to get out. But when I thought out, it was either like Nashville, Atlanta, Charleston. Like I still kind of wanted to be here, but had that experience that I did have out in Los Angeles.
Well, you lived in California. You really went big
I really did
Hannah.
it. I mean, I went from Tuscaloosa, Alabama.
Roll Tide.
To Los Angeles. Roll Tide.
Yes, I dated a boy. Oh, Kyle's going to love it that I talked about this. I dated a boy that played football at Alabama.
No way.
So I spent a lot of time in Tuscaloosa. He was very sweet, but it just wasn't going anywhere really. Yeah. But, I loved my time at Alabama.
And you got to go to all the football games?
Oh, yeah.
It is so fun.
I was a big Alabama fan. And then it made all my family Alabama fans.
Then
I married a man who played rugby at Tennessee and was like, you got to stop with the Roll Tides. I'm like, whatever, fine.
Well, it's football season. We can watch a game. Maybe we can
watch a game together.
Okay. You started out in pageants, I would say. I mean, I feel like that's how do you feel like that's how it all started, or do you feel like singing?
I think that it started for me before. I was always an entertainer, and you know how being from a small town, when you are like the little star in the small town, it really it became part of who I was. And I loved being on stage and singing. I mean, I started doing talent shows and, being on stage when I was 6 years old. And from the time I graduated college or high school at 18, it was like cemented in who I was. I loved being on stage. I loved performing. And, I think that you started pageants before I did. Pageants were really a whim for me. One day, randomly, my dad was like, you should be Miss America. And it was kind of jarring. I mean, my sister had always done like county fair pageants, little festival, hometown things, but I was never into them. It was just never my thing. And I was like, I'm 5 feet tall. Like, I wasn't what I thought the pageant girl was supposed to be, just like so many people that are outside of pageant systems think. So the more research I did, I realized like 35% of the score was talent. I was like, I got that. 25% of the score was interview. I was like, I got that. And I'm at 60%. I can figure out the rest of it. So I competed my first year. I think I was a senior in college. I had no idea what I
Oh,
was doing.
wow. Oh,
Yeah.
I mean,
Oh, it was
the
really
first
bad.
time that I competed in a pageant, when it's all the things, when it's the talent, the swimsuit,
Uh-huh.
the interview, it's it was bad. I
Yeah.
think it just is bad the
And then
first
we
year.
figured it
And
out.
then you're like, "Oh, so
Mhm.
this is what we wear. This is what we say. This
Yeah.
is what type of talent
Uh-huh.
song you sing or you dance to." It's a whole different ball game than just
Yeah.
like a talent
Mhm.
show or even like Miss America, like a beauty contest. I mean, it is
Yes.
a full package deal, and
It really
there's a
is.
look to the package
Yeah, there's a
too.
look to the package.
Yeah.
And I the first year that I did it, like I said, I didn't know what I was doing. And I didn't have any help because,
Mhm.
once you get in the system, then everybody kind of sinks their
Yes.
hands into you and molds you into like what they want you to be. But the first year I in the Miss Kentucky pageant sang Rocky Top Tennessee. Like that's how aloof I was to the things I was supposed to do. And I wore like a black velvet stirrup pantsuit with like a green sequined
Oh, I feel
double
like
shoulder padded, and it wasn't 1989. It was 20 it was like the 2008s. Like it was whatever. I figured it out. So that first year I made the top 10 in Miss Congeniality. Second year I was fourth runner up. And the second year I like really wanted to win.
Yeah.
And I really did everything that everybody told me to do. And the thing that I figured out between the second and third year, which is the year that I won, is, so many people that were telling me what to do in these pageants had never even done a pageant. A lot of
Yeah.
them were men,
Yep.
and I loved them. I mean, they were awesome, but they told me the dress I wanted to wear was not the dress that you were supposed to wear. And I never said to myself, well, have you
Yeah.
ever been in a pageant?
Yeah.
You just listen to the people. And I I was molded into a really pretty form, but it just wasn't who I was.
Mhm.
And the last year that I competed was the year that I won. And it was my last year that I was going to age out. And like the pressure on you when you're going to age out
Yeah.
is it's so heavy. And I almost lost my mind, like spiraling before the pageant, just because pressure, I mean, you can crumble under the weight of the world. I feel like,
Oh, yeah.
especially in these pageants when it's really supposed to be like, you're supposed to have it all together. And now that I've been on the other side of it and like, I'm 10 or 12 years removed from it.
Mhm.
And I look at these girls on stage. I just sang at Miss Kentucky. I always pick the ones that look like they're having fun
Yeah.
and that seem comfortable in their dresses and that I don't feel like they're holding their breath on stage. And sometimes in life and in pageants and everywhere, it's like the answer is right in front of you of, oh, I should do this. And sometimes the answer is so much easier,
So much
but
easier.
it just takes a roundabout way of finding out like that you need to do that. And
Oh, and I went straight back to Miss USA being like, "Everybody do
shape
something
me
for
back.
me."
Where are you?
So it's been a life lesson through well after that
Yeah.
of when I'm my authentic self, I feel like that's when I like really shine. But then there's always this loop of, oh, but I'm looking at this person, this is how they did this thing. So then I try to change myself and then of
It's
course it doesn't
hard.
work.
I mean, comparison, you and I have a lot of similarities.
Mhm.
Anybody that signs up for a pageant, I bet has a lot of the Mallory and Hannah things.
Mhm.
I mean, you are an overachiever, I'm sure, a perfectionist, a woman that compares and a people pleaser, like
Yeah.
to a 10, because I am too. I
Mhm.
know you because I am you.
Yeah.
And then, I had my own journey. Like I majorly crumbled under the weight of my success too.
Mhm.
Luckily, not like super, super publicly,
Mhm.
because I was kind of like coming off of all of that. But that is when my life like shifted and turned. And, I look back on those times and just truly like crumbling under the weight of all of that. And it taught me my greatest lessons. I
Mhm.
mean, and brought me to where I am. But, and now like having a daughter, I think I'm cognizant of when I start the perfectionism and the people pleasing and it's really hard not to like fall into old patterns when it's who you've
Mhm.
been your whole entire life and when it's like who people really loved you
Yeah.
as. Your town, I'm sure Tuscaloosa really was so proud of you
Oh
because
yeah. And then they're
you were
like,
so
what is she doing?
perfect and cute, and yeah,
They probably have loved me then been like, what is she doing? And I think maybe now they're
I'm
like,
sure
all
they've
right,
always loved you,
she's back. She's back. But before you got into pageants, do you feel like you all already kind of had that all the makings of people pleasing, perfectionist, loving to be the star, but with being the star comes all the pressure. And do you feel like that was how your family, like, was that your role in the family?
Yeah. Well, so I was not only was I a singer in this tiny town, but like I said, I grew up on this farm with all of these first cousins, and I was the oldest of all 23. So it was like I had 23 younger siblings. So I was always the role model. I was always like, straight valedictorian and the role model and the performer and all of the things. And I didn't feel a lot of pressure as a young child, though. I put a lot of pressure on myself, but I liked to achieve, and I felt good achieving, and I didn't feel like love was held from me if I didn't achieve. My parents were not ever like, you have to make straight A's or else. They were, they really like fostered the things that we were good at. I mean, my sister made like B's and C's. She was smarter than me, but like we just all kind of had different rules. All of that was self-inflicted, I think, with me. But I just felt the need to be that person. Like I said, I liked being that person. And for me, Hannah, it wasn't until, Miss Kentucky and Miss America, I really started feeling the pressure of, for me, it was like, what's next? How can I top this? People are watching me. They're so proud. It's so fun doing these types of things. And how can I continue to top this? Because in what year was it? In 2010, right after Miss America, I was cast for The Amazing Race, which is, reality TV. You and I both have this experience.
Was that because you were?
Yes, because I could not contain my emotions on the stage that I was cast, probably, yes. So that's when someone called me about it. And then my dad and I went through the process because I picked my dad to be my partner. It was his favorite show. And so, I come off the Miss America. I was runner-up in 2010 Miss America, and then went straight into, before I even gave up my crown as Miss Kentucky, to The Amazing Race. Came straight off of that season, and they called me back for an all-star. It's very similar to your journey.
Because when I went on The Bachelor, I was still Miss Alabama.
Exactly. And then they called you back again.
Yep.
Yeah, come on back. So we did the all-star season, and that was all within 1 year. So here I am, you can turn on your TV and watch me in any array of things. And that was when things kind of started to spiral for me, because I just felt so much pressure to like be that person.
Yeah.
I just felt like I was disappointing everyone.
I totally get it. And it wasn't that you even like these opportunities were coming to you in a way. And I think for me, I know that like your faith's important to you. I was like, okay, God, you keep opening up these doors. Like I'm going to do this. And I also like to perform. So this is fun for me. But that much attention, eyes on you in a year, coming from being a small town girl from Alabama, Kentucky, where, you can be like the big fish in the small pond, but now everybody can turn on their TVs and watch you.
Yeah.
That is really hard, I think, for anybody to not have some type of come down or be fiending for the next,
bigger
what's
thing.
Next. Oh, I've done this, so I've got to do better.
Yes.
And I just wanted to be, I didn't win Miss America or Miss USA. That was like my first thing of like, I thought that's how I was going to get out.
Yeah.
I love being from Tuscaloosa, but I always did think I was special.
Yeah. Well, you were special.
But
you are. Yeah.
Yeah. But like, did you feel that? Like that you felt like you were meant to do something?
Oh, I knew I wasn't going to live in my hometown.
Yeah.
Yeah. I always thought I would sing country music.
Yeah.
That's what I always thought that I would do. Pageants took me in another direction, and it's great. I love what I do now. Is the dream job, because I can do, if I want to sing tomorrow, I can sing tomorrow. Now I have an audience to where I can put out a product. I can do a brand deal. I can do whatever I want. That's the beauty of an online, audience and followers and community. Community is what I call mine, because they truly are backing everything that I do at this point, because they're so amazing. But where things shifted for me, and I'm sure that they shifted for you, was everybody from my hometown, and probably people in your hometown, like they know you. And like when people know you, have opinions about you, they feel like kind of justified. But it's when you get on a larger stage and you're being like flooded with opinions and people that like they've never met you. And especially when they're wrong, even though people's opinions are not supposed to be our business, like, let's get real. It's really hard to look away from that.
Did that start on Amazing Race, or would you say?
I would say during pageants and stuff like that, during Amazing Race, it was even more because, reality TV, it really comes with a fan base that has a lot of opinions and a lot of
reality TV fans. They are obsessed, and I'm so thankful for Bachelor Nation.
Yeah.
But if they don't like you, they don't like you a lot.
Yeah.
Or if they're upset with something that you did, or just decide that you're not the person that they're rooting for, you can really feel it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's so hard, especially you were young. I was young. I was in my 20s and it was hard. And I didn't have things eventually that felt as big, that people were as proud of. And that's where I just started kind of pulling back, and I started just being disappointed in myself. And I started, I developed a prescription pill addiction during that time too. And that was where my life really shifted in a lot of ways. And looking back on it, it made me who I am. It's the platform for everything that I do now. So I'm really glad that it happened, honestly. But it's hard when you're going through it.
Absolutely. Sure. I want to go back to, just because I think Amazing Race is the coolest show ever, what that experience was like. And do you think, what was that like doing it with your dad?
Oh my gosh, amazing. Well, you're close to your dad too. So
yeah, but we butt heads. I don't know how you and your...
Well, I will say they give a family a good edit always.
Yeah.
Because everybody likes watching a family, it's they always come together. They do not. If you're a dating couple, you're thrown to the wolves for sure. But I do feel they're a little bit easier, so you probably would have been fine. But my dad is salt of the earth, humble, very soft spoken, this great guy.
But he also is such a bad A.
Yeah, he is.
Was that before? You have to tell people about your dad.
In a lot of different ways. I mean, he built a humongous, successful family business from nothing at all. He's a really cool guy. Now he's, climbing all the mountains. I mean, he's one of a handful of people in the history of the world that's done what he's done with these mountains at his age. It's wild.
I think having somebody like that, as your father, it makes you feel like you can do anything.
Yeah. Well, he never stops either. He just always keeps really challenging himself and really reinventing himself. I feel like I've reinvented myself a lot. I feel like you have too. And I think a lot of people are really scared to reinvent themselves because they've gone so far down one path, or they've gone to school for something, or everybody thinks that they should be this. But I mean, this is it. This is our life. And it's continue to reinvent yourself. It's so it revives my soul every time I feel like I jump into something new. I mean, I think I did get that from him. And I'm thankful. And even though it drives us nuts when he wants to climb Mount Everest at almost 70, it is who he is, and it is why a lot of us are the way that we are. Yeah. I'm sure.
It's really inspiring. But I think with that, like you said, it's if you don't stop, if they're always trying to chase something, what happens when it does stop? And I think that is where I've also had my own journey with that. But that's kind of where your turning point started, right after Amazing Race, right?
Well, a few years after, yeah.
You're on this high, and then what happened?
I just felt so after the second season of Amazing Race, I did, different things here and there. I did some travel show pilots, and I lived in Malta.
What did you want to do?
I didn't know what I wanted to do. And I think that's part of the problem, because we think we're supposed to know all the time, when in reality you can just do something. It doesn't have to be what you keep doing for 4 years. You can just pick something and do it, But I think especially as young women, men are probably like this too. You think you have to have it all figured out, and here's the next step that I'm going to take, and this is what I'm going to do. And I didn't know what I wanted to do. And I also felt like the thing that I was going to do had to be really public.
Yep,
and big and shiny, or I just felt like I was stepping back for me, for everybody else, and something that was once such a great thing. I mean, essentially, I achieved all my goals by 26. I didn't have anything else that I needed to check off the list.
Goals I didn't know. I felt. I mean, mine was at 26 too.
Yeah.
it was like all these, my life went in this direction I could have never imagined. I think probably for you too, it's not like you like wake up one day and like,
no,
I'm going to go to Amazing Race 3 times.
3 times.
And be Miss Kentucky.
Yeah.
All within like a matter of like 2 years. It seemed like I could have never dreamt this up. And you feel all this like rush of emotion and achievement. And then that wasn't even the plan. And then you're like, oh, but wait, what is my plan? So what am I going to do? That is really hard. But like you said, I think maybe people don't have to do the extremes of what we did. I think when you've accomplished whatever that goal is early, it can feel a little confusing to know which way to take the next step.
Yeah.
And so I think for me, and I don't know if you would say this, but like I felt stuck. I didn't know what to do. Yes.
Yeah. I froze too, probably. But I also was real scrambly. So I was just trying to
make something work.
And you know, after you come off of a high, especially like a public high, everybody's waiting in the wings for you to come off the stage and being like, hey, let me sign you up for this. Let me sign you up. You know, it's like, what am I supposed to do? What's the right path? I don't know. And I did some like hits and misses. I filmed some pilots of different things, and I did, you know, appearances here and there. And for the next few years, I just felt like I was just starting to spiral and like starting to just feel like this isn't who I am. And then meanwhile, you know, we were talking about ADHD, you know, I was given a prescription to a medication for a disorder that I did not have. And then I got addicted to that.
Yeah.
And then I couldn't sleep. And then I got addicted to sleeping pills. And it really, it was really bad. And I almost died. And my life really took a turn then when I went to a treatment center. And if you would have told me standing on the Miss America stage in 2010, in a few years, this is where you're going to end up, I would have said that's the wrong crystal ball. Like, that's not me.
No way.
No, there's
I'm the perfect role model for women as Miss Kentucky.
It's so funny because someone asked me yesterday, what was my onstage question? And I said, you know what it was? It was about illegal drug use in baseball. And do you know what I said on that stage? I stood up there and I was like, well, I would just hope if you were put in that opportunity that you would make the right decision and you would set a good example. And I ended up in rehab 3 years later. I mean, you just never know.
You never know what somebody's going through too.
Know what path you are going to go on in your life. And I didn't think that would be my path. But honestly, Hannah, looking back on all the wonderful things that I did, one of the most wonderful things I ever did in my life, not just to save my life, but was the work I did in this treatment program, because it made me a different kind of person. And it stripped away every bit of, I was clinging on for dear life to all those titles. I mean, you and I didn't even have to introduce ourselves. When we walked into a room, like we have a banner on that tells you who we are. I mean, and a crown.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
I'm a queen.
But like when you have to give the crown to someone else, it's like,
then you're not.
Do you remember me? You know, it's it took me a long time to strip away all those things. But when I left that program, I was just like the bare bones, most grounded version of myself that I'd ever been in my life. And I still feel like I'm a version of that, not attached to all those things, but I do get reattached sometimes to things, but I'm aware when I do.
To be exposed to how to even be able to strip away.
Yeah.
I think for me as well, I think for a lot of people, sometimes it takes you like hitting that place where there's only up.
Yes.
But that's not a fun journey there.
No, it's not. And like you know, but rock bottom is a beautiful thing. Because, you know, if you've got a great family around you or a community, that's where people step in and help you up.
Yeah.
And I think that, and I wrote about this in my book, I think the worst spot to be is where you're just, you don't hit rock bottom, where you're unhappy with your life and the direction that it's gone. And you wake up every day feeling like, is this it? You don't like your job, or you don't get, your relationships aren't great. When you're just kind of like mediocre, because that's not the glaring red flag of you need to go to treatment program where you do the work. And I think people live so much of their lives in that mediocre, I'm fine being fine state. And so for me, I may have ended up like that had I not reached rock bottom.
Yeah, that's so true.
And had to get admitted somewhere. I mean, I was also the queen of rehab though too. I was the queen of rehab.
Everybody knew me at the rehab.
Everybody did. You never really like lose that part of you, but you don't become as attached to it.
Yeah. I think it's okay to know that you're special and you shine, but that doesn't have to be attached to anything other than like that you're like, that's who God made you to be.
Yes.
But it's not because he gave you a crown and a sash or put you in front of a screen. Yes. But when you start getting attached to those things, that's what the world says makes you special and shiny.
And like regular everyday life makes up a lot of our time on earth. So if you become so attached to this big, sparkly, shiny, I am Hannah, I'm Mallory, these are the things that I do. Like when you get into the phase of your life where it's so much of like the mundane, if you can't feel yourself and you can't fall in love with those days too, then I mean, you're going to end up having a problem or you're going to be dissatisfied with your life. And like being dissatisfied with your life is so awful. I don't want that for anyone. I want everyone to love their lives. And if you don't love your life, I want you to work to get to the place to where you need to be to love your life. Everybody can get to that place, I believe.
We were talking about this actually last night. It's like money, success will not make an already unhappy person happy. I think if you are happy and things come into your life, that's just it's an additive, but those things don't make you happy. I mean, for me, I struggle with that. I'm like, oh, but I want this, or I want this to be successful. I want to create this and look at this person that's done that. Or I'm like, I want a beautiful home one day. And it's like, but that's not going to make me happy. That'll be additive to my life. But I look around and like, when I really think, I'm like, I am so grateful. I have literally everything I need. I love the home that we have here. I'm in a great relationship. I have the cutest dog ever. I get to wake up every morning and my body works and I can move it and
because of the cold plunges.
Because of the cold plunge. It's just it's been like it's something that I really struggled with actually lately, but it's just like I do have learned some techniques from having harder times in the past of being able to change my mindset.
And also like having hard times, you realize like I used to like hold my breath that something bad was going to happen all the time and feel so scared. But then once you have a knockdown drag out with life, you're like, oh, I lived.
Yeah.
I lived to see the next day that I thought there was no way I was going to live to see. And then like you can make it through. You can make it through. Like you're going to live through it and it's going to be okay.
And isn't it, okay, I don't know if you feel this way, but if you lived your life for so long trying to be like the best and this like role model that didn't mess up at all, once you have like you're honest with yourself, with other people, or there's really no way to hide it, there's almost this like relief that you have. And I think other people are actually even more drawn to you because you're a real human.
Well, and everyone's like that.
And everyone is actually like that, but we were trying so hard.
We didn't know. I guess we didn't realize. I thought we thought we were the only two people that needed to really have it all together.
Yeah.
It is a relief. I agree with you.
I think that's why people that's why I know that I love seeing your journey, because you're honest about that it's not always like this, or like you are so grateful. You are so blessed for the way things have happened in your life.
Yeah.
But it's not like this like line straight to success. Yes. There's like some ups and downs and in between. Can you explain like what was it like when you're like, okay, this is actually really serious and I need help?
Yeah. So, and like, if you've done any sort of education as a family around addiction, I didn't believe it until I was in active addiction. There was nothing I could do to control the use of those pills. There was nothing. I knew it was going to kill me. I would go to the doctor's office because I was like always going to different doctors. And I had a doctor look at me and say, I don't know what you're doing, but it's going to kill you. You're going to die. And I walked out of that doctor's office and I kept doing it. Like there is nothing that you can do. I think that I wish that so many families that give up on their family members before they make it into treatment, because I think that people think it's just they're just making wrong choices, or they just don't care about us, or they're just selfish. There's nothing, a true addiction, it is like, I can't describe it. There's nothing you can do to stop it. And for me also, back to the people pleasing, the people see me as this person, I knew I was gonna die. My body was shutting down. Like, I could feel it every day. I felt like it was just shutting down, and I was also a shell of a human being. I didn't even feel like myself anymore. I
Were
wasn't
you
thinking
working? Were
clearly.
you
Yeah, I was working, like, here and there, but and hiding it well, and not like a 9 to 5 job where the same people were seeing me. It was really
Mhm.
scattered, so I could kinda keep it under the radar. But, I knew that if I didn't figure out how to get my health right, that I was gonna die. But I thought to myself, I was like, "I've lived a really good life, and I think I would rather die than people find out what's happening and that I'm, like,
Wow.
addicted to e prescription pills." And I think that that's the state that a lot of people get in with that, and it's a blessing a lot of times when people end up in a hospital or, like, with a legal problem
Mhm.
or their family step in because they get help or they get the opportunity to get help. I mean,
Mhm.
everybody doesn't come out of it sober, but I all I needed was the opportunity, and, like, I wanted to feel like myself again. I can remember after
Mhm.
being there for, like, 2 or 2 weeks or so, like, when you feel this, like, veil lifted, like, you feel joy not chemically manufactured. I mean,
Mhm.
it just you feel like your soul come alive again. And so, yeah, that's what it meant for me. Like, when I thought I was gonna die, I thought I was gonna die, and I was like, "This must be my path," and I've had a really great life, and, you know, I'm very religious also, and I lived, on Music Row in Nashville, which is close to the church that I went to, and I used to run to my church every day, and I would, like, say a rosary on the way, and then I would go into this church, and I would light a candle. Lighting candles has always been, like, this big thing, like prayers in
Mhm.
the Catholic Church, or a lot of churches actually do, like, candles and stuff like that, and I would light this candle, and I would, like, kneel on this, it was, like, marble floors, and I would kneel down, it was, like, so cold on this floor, and I can just remember saying, like, "Just help me, like, help me. I don't know what's wrong with me, like, just take this out of me. You know, you gave me so much, and I feel like I've ruined everything," and I almost feel like even I was disappointing God at that point. I was even
Mhm.
embarrassed to say prayers because I was like, "Look at all the things you gave me and look at what I did with it." I just felt so just ashamed, just like I'd, like, squandered everything.
Mhm.
But, now looking back, I know it that was my life's journey, and it wasn't just like, "Oh, good, she's made it through and she's sober now, now she can continue on with her life." It changed everything in my life. It makes me a better wife and a better mom. I mean, Kyle and I were dating
I
when
was
I was
gonna
in active
ask.
addiction. So he saw the crazy me, which he was
Yeah.
a little crazy too. But I mean,
Yeah.
we have the most amazing, deep, rich relationship because we went through like the ringer together.
Mhm.
And now we're like the parents of 3. I mean, I
Yeah,
just got
yeah.
back from the uniform store picking up. We've lived a lot of different life together. And it's so wonderful when you can be in a relationship with someone that's seen all those versions
Yes.
and that's fought for that relationship over and
Mhm.
over. It makes the richest types of love, I think. But yeah, my journey with addiction was not part of the book I thought I was going to write, but here
Yeah.
we are.
Was
And
it
I'm
your
thankful.
family that did step in or
Yeah, I
yeah.
came home for an event because I was still doing these events because I was still like a little bit shiny on the outside,
Mhm.
And there was one event that I did in my hometown, and my parents were there, and they were just like, "What is going on?" I was just kind of out of it, and they took my keys, and no one in my family had ever been to treatment. And I was at my family home, and they just started Googling, like, "What do you do in this
Mhm.
situation?" And they found a place. And so, yeah, they dropped me off. And my mom was really the one that kind of led the charge. My dad, he's a little bit of a blind believer in me. And I was always just like this precious child that could make it through anything. And he felt like he was like abandoning me, leaving me there.
Mhm.
And my mom, when they left me, like felt this sense of relief. And they got in the car, they left me, and they say, of course, I wasn't in the car. And my mom said, shut the door, and was like, I feel so and just looked at my dad, and my dad had tears in his eyes and was like, "I feel like I just abandoned my child. Like, I wanna go back and get her?"
Mhm.
And so I'm grateful that it happened that way because what needed to happen. And I was there for 5.5 months. I mean, they didn't let me out after 30 days. They suggested extended treatment for me.
Yeah.
And that was where I
You're
really
like,
did.
me?
I was like, wait, you're letting her go? and I've got to say, and when I was there for like a couple months, it's actually the story that I opened my book with.
Which I have read half of your book, and it's so good.
Thank you for reading.
Yeah, it's by my bedside table. I wanted to try to finish it before, but life got
half
crazy.
is
but I'm half.
That's
I'm
great.
halfway through.
Half is a lot.
It's amazing.
But that first story is like in treatment, they really knew what they were doing with me, because not only was it getting sober and clean from these substances for me, but it was what's underneath this. Just like with your brother. I mean, everybody has something underneath it that drives them to do this. And so, my hair extensions were falling out. I had these hair extensions for 10 years.
That was story. I
blonde
felt
hair.
it.
Yeah, I feel it's part of who I was.
And you took out all your hair extensions, and didn't they mess up your hair color?
Well,
or something?
they let me have like an off-campus visit to the salon, and I thought, this is awesome. I'm doing so great. But really, they knew that this was part of what they needed to do with me.
Oh, they did. They told you after. I didn't.
Yeah, they definitely knew what they were doing with me. They're smart. They're smart. For sure. And so I'd never not had hair extensions for 10 years, and they were long and blonde and thick. And even like, you take them out and you get them put back in. And this was just who I was, with long blonde hair. But they were starting to fall out and melt out, and my eyelashes were falling off, and I was literally falling apart. And so they sent me to this place, and they turned my chair around so I couldn't see myself in the mirror when they were taking them out. It took about an hour and a half. And I remember looking at this little silver tray, and she'd take one out and put them there. And when she turned my chair around and I looked in the mirror of myself with this like 2-inch just fried off hair, I had like, when I say a full out of body experience, is the only time in my life I've ever felt like I actually had an out of body experience. And like my life flashed before my eyes. It was like it was the most bizarre experience, but that is how attached I think I was to this version of who I was and the way that I looked and who I was, that was the most ultimate nervous breakdown that I've ever had. And I tried to leave treatment then. I was like, you're like, okay, you get us sober, but then like, you're going to make me, I'd gained 35 pounds. I was like, I feel disgusting. Like, now you make me want to do more things that I wasn't even like, I just felt worthless. And like, I'd never felt like that before in my life. And it was the lowest of lows that I ever hit. But then that was the process of me just ripping these attachments off. Like, that's how attached I was to it. That my lowest point in my life was when they took my hair extensions out. It sounds so silly, but like,
I
it was
think a
my
lot
reality.
of women also understand that. It's like, we do whatever we can. It's the way that we dress. It's the type of way we do our makeup. It's our hair. And that is like, that's who we are. And if that is taken away, then it's like, well, then what are we? And I don't think it sounds like there's a thing, it's like funny, but it's real. Like that. I totally, I think that was really powerful that you opened up the book like that.
Thanks. It was a pivotal moment.
So you're out of therapy. How did your life change, and how did you set yourself up for success after, okay, I've been here for 5 months, but now I'm stepping back into real life. How did you honestly like set up the steps to get your life to where you are now, which is just I love that you tell this story, because it's just, people are going to start following you or already follow you, and they hear this story and they're like, wow, like you have climbed back up in like this beautiful way, but also like haven't left that girl behind either. And I just think it's so special for people to hear the full rock bottom, but then to hear like now where you are and how did you get there from first day out of treatment.
And that was the reason that like I am where I am now, where I had to tell people the story, because whenever I got out of treatment in like 13, it's almost been 10 years. I was good at being on stage and a public person, but everybody around me was like, well, that's what led to this spiral and downfall. And my mom kept saying, I think you should get a job at the makeup counter at Nordstrom. And I was like, that is awesome for so many people, Mom, but I don't want to do that. Like, I wanted to do something else. I wanted to grow. I didn't know in what, but I liked like being a public person. I liked singing and being on stage and doing things. So I knew I had to have something. And so at the time, everybody's starting blogs. Blogs were really big. So I was like, I'm going to start a blog. Okay. So I Googled it, how you started it. And I started it. That was in July of that year. 3 months later, I started a YouTube channel and it really got big. I started making money and like doing brand deals. And it just really like grew from there. But I figured it out. I mean, no one was giving me any money. Like I had to find ways. I was doing people's makeup kind of on the side to try and like make enough money to figure it out. And then I had an old camera that I'd had forever ago. And then I went and bought like a piece of sequined fabric as a backdrop. And I learned how to do YouTube videos and I'll do makeup tutorials and lifestyle things. And it was so different than what I'd ever done before.
Yeah.
But I just, like I said, reinvention. Like I found a way, found something I liked doing, and I continued doing it. And that was in 2013. And then it grew and it grew and it grew.
How did it grow? Because I know for me, like I know where my growth came from, but you started.
I started at 0 followers.
Yeah.
Because they didn't have Instagram when I did Miss America or Amazing Race or anything. So I didn't have any platform at all. And nobody remembers. I mean, people remember you from back then, but they're not looking you up on a social media app really. A handful of people are, but so I had 1,000 followers or 2,000 followers.
Yeah.
And it just grew and grew. And I just I think people liked me on YouTube. They liked the authenticity and the way that I was doing things, because just like my first year in the pageants, I really didn't know. Know how to do it.
Yeah.
And it grew, and I was always pretty good at business because I'd grown up in a family where they were really intentional teaching us about things like that and how to manage yourself and how to negotiate for yourself and how not let people take advantage. But, it really just organically grew, and there weren't any such things as like giveaways or anything. So growth was just really people finding you and following you
and sticking with you
and then buying from your links. At first, like a lot of people start out with small brand deals and they start with affiliate links and stuff like that. And that's what keeps you afloat, like reward style or whatever it is. And then I started the podcast, and then I started merchandise about 5 years ago. And then I wrote 2 books. It is quite the operation. And now I have a great squad team, and my husband came over and worked for me. He used to own a ballet company in Nashville, and he really came over a few years ago because we had to have someone to like help raise our kids while I was working, and we knew that was something we wanted to do. And he was the one that he started out. He helped me. He edited my YouTube videos, and Adam's over here rearranging your note cards. So
did you have to teach him, or was he like, "Hey, this thing's
figured it out"?
You're like, but was he like, "Hey, you're doing this great, but like I want to help you," or did he start off editing from the beginning?
I started off editing from the beginning, but it's hard. It was hard for me to put the effort in, and editing took me like 8 hours of video, and it was hard. Even though luckily I didn't have children at the time, so I had the time to do it. But it just, once I got busier, and he was still working at the time, and then he would edit at night in this little tiny like carpeted room that we had like in our house, and then we just started sharing our life like vlog style. And Kyle was so awkward in our early videos. Like he was just not a behind the camera person. He's never been like a person gets that kind of, he didn't, not a stage presence kind of guy. So now he's very comfortable, as you say. You found him.
He has
the
great content.
Reviews.
Yeah.
But it now is truly like a family business. So my sister-in-law works for me full time. Kyle, he does more childcare, and then he helps with other different things now. And it's truly like it is the modern day family business. This is
incredible. I think out of a lot, I mean, like you've just made something so successful, and it started out with 1,000 followers. I just want people to hear that story because you can do it.
Yeah.
I think it's a little bit harder now because it is. I don't know if it was saturated there. I don't know.
I think anybody can do it, Hannah. I think anybody can do it. It drives me insane when people say, "Oh, well, it must be easy for you because you have a," and I'm like, no, I started at 0. I had no platform. Anyone can do it. And I believe there's still room and there's still space. And I believe you can have a full-blown career with 10 to 20,000 followers.
Absolutely.
I do. I think you can make enough money to support yourself and or your family with 20,000 followers if you do it right.
last thing, your book is called Living Fully. Your brand is Living Fully. I love everything about Living Fully, what you've created in that. What do you think Living Fully is, and how can somebody start doing that today?
I think that Living Fully is different in every stage of my life. Right now, I'm running a big business and I have young children. So for me right now, like Living Fully is balance. So Living Fully is balancing out all these really exciting things. And in our business, it's like the sky's the limit. Like the more work you do, the more you can do. And it's hard as an overachiever to like say, this is my ceiling. But your kids are only young once. And like, I feel so much fulfillment when I am like just in it with my family. So right now, that's what Living Fully is to me, is finding balance and not letting the overachiever, like I want to do more and more side, like run the show, because like I love my family and like this stage of our lives and being in this new home with a new baby. And
a girl who's so freaking cute. A girl.
I got a girl. I love my boys, but
there's just something
there's something so special about having a girl too. And I think that Living Fully for me is being like, well, these are all the things that I prayed for and wished for and begged for and wanted and saw in my life. And I got them. And as a person that like loves a big life and the loud and sparkly and shiny, I'm also like the person that needs to the most be like, these are all the things that I prayed for and I got them. And like, let's enjoy them. Yeah. Let's live life fully, like right now where we are in it. And so that's what it is for me right now. But constantly it's reassessing my life and like seeing where I need to shift things and make changes so that I can live a big life and not be on cruise control and just like taking a back seat kind of in my own life. So that was a long answer.
I love it.
You can read my book if you want to know specifically the steps.
Yes, read your book is so great. I'm so excited for what you have coming out soon. I'm excited to hear more about it for other people too. Yes. But I just love how you share your life, your family online. And I think it's really inspiring for other people to see what you've done, what you've gone through, and how you continue to live life in the fullness that it's meant to be lived.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, thank you for coming on the pod.
This is so nice. I knew I was going to love you in real life.